Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. Review anything and everything. And today we are getting into the build of our next Star Wars mock. Now you can see in the background right now that we have my space desert planet. I've named it Groon, and here is my space capital city planet. I add the planet always at the end of it because obviously they're themed off of a planet-wide kind of concept, and this is the desert planet city. So, or desert city planet, however you want to say it. So those were the ones that we did into the back, and just kind of little update. I did a further update after I build them. Then I do a little bit of refresh update for little things I add to it to kind of bring it to life a little bit more. And that one I ended up doing after I did the little update. I ended up doing some more little things. I got rid of a lot of the beige in it, and kind of got rid of some of the beige I had underneath here that were the jumper studs that I had, the 1x1 studs, whatever the case is. So just want to kind of point that out. But anyway, so I have those in the background. Let's just give you guys a sense of what we're doing here. So now we are actually focusing on a new setup. So here we go. Blank slate. This is going to be the capital city slums. So this, the capital city is modeled off of the concept of Coruscant in Star Wars, where it is elevated way above in the sky. And so that's why it has elevation on it, which you can see into the background. And that is the idea of it. And then normally in that type of city design, you're thousands of feet up in the air and way below where the higher level of civility or civilians don't ever touch. Thousands of feet or more down below is just kind of like those, very much that cyberpunk aesthetic that we think about when we think of cyberpunk-ish or things like that. You think of Blade Runner, you think of, you know, movies like Akira, things of that sort, where the streets is very neon, this and that down below. And that's kind of what Coruscant is. It's funny because Coruscant looks like two different types of places. And like I said, this is being modeled off that kind of concept, but Coruscant is like almost two different types of places. The above looks very clean, very open, a lot of light coming through, as you would see in the prequel Star Wars movies, but they never really showed the lower level except some in more newer media recently, where you would see the streets and it's very much like crowded, congested, where the buildings are like very close together. They're very stacked. So it has almost this kind of just very congested, stacked cyberpunk vibe to it. And that is what we are doing here today. So the first thing is I had to frame things out in advance. Now, sometimes I do that and sometimes I didn't with the previous builds, or a little bit. I did a little bit of framing kind of as I started going along with it, and I started kind of coming up with an idea what I was going to do sometime on the spot of the video. But this one I really felt like I needed to kind of know in advance, because this one's going to probably be one of the most, it's not as a dynamic build as the capital city upper area, but as far as the positioning, everything is very crucial, because I had to, well, one, I had to count out the parts I have left. And though I'm not using all my plates that I have left, I'm using the majority of the bulk of my plates left. So it definitely is with a few extras if I need some extras, but not a whole lot. So as always, links going to be in the description down below for all the parts that were used in all of these builds is going to be inside the link in the description. And as I said before, this is a simple build. It's going to be listed in the title because it's just using simple parts. It's a couple of bricks, regular bricks, plates and whatnot. As always, these are Lego style blocks. They're not Lego branded, but like I said, links in the description now for you to get to purchase these same ones because they're a lot more affordable. Now, going on with the build, what I'm going to do here, I'm going to lay it out to you guys for what you see here. And then from there, I'm going to get building. But what I'm going to do, like I kind of have done before, is I'm going to build off of the platform and then slowly start to attach them on when, you know, I'm ready to attach them on. So the layout is going to be this. This here and that over there are going to be the apartment stacks. Let me get something to point with. These are going to be the apartment stacks. So they're going to go up 3 3 apartments per stack. Now there's not going to be no space in between them, which made me say to myself, I may not even build 2 walls, but just 1 wall, and the other one's going to be blank, and just utilize the wall of the other place just to save a couple of bricks. I am going to end up, because I ended up buying some new bricks, because at first I was going to try to do it and I was a little bit low on bricks. I bought some more bricks, but even buying all the bricks I bought, since that used the majority of the gray bricks inside the original capital city, the upper area, it took a lot more of the gray bricks because everything was on, stilts, everything was elevated, versus the desert planet and the amount of bricks used for that, because it came with the same amount of bricks that I bought, same ones, but just different colorway. I think and suspect I might end up running low on bricks on this, because it's going to be very stacked, very high, very crunched, very congested. So it's going to take a lot of bricks. So what I'm going to end up doing is building a couple of windows like I did in the embassy tower in the capital city, the upper area. And I'm going to take that same concept, not as many windows, but I'm going to make a couple of windows in some of these apartment buildings. So that way it kind of alleviates some of that brick usage. In addition, so these are going to stack up to be 3 floors high. And you kind of get a sense of that from the 3-story high over here, that bar area for the desert planet one. So that's the height that all 3 of these are going to be. So you get a sense of that from there, how tall that's going to be. So it's pretty tall. And then what we're going to also have is, being that this is not as, how should I say, as far as their technology and the things they use, even though it's the lower area, it still has technology, even though it's kind of more ran down. So unlike the desert planet, where you don't have elevators, they're still going to utilize elevators. In the same way I implemented the kind of Fox or fake elevators in the capital city, the above ground area, I'm going to do the same here. And that's going to be, honestly, a big benefit for me for safe spacing and crunching. So what I'm going to do is, let me grab a couple of these over here just for placeholders. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to implement an elevator system right here. So the elevator is going to come straight up, equal to the height of, obviously, these. I was originally going to do a steps method, but I realized that's going to take a lot of bricks, and I could just do the elevator thing. It makes sense, and it just works. So we're going to do the elevator thing. Elevator is going to come up for each floor level. So what you're going to have is these, obviously, at each 3 heights, coming up like that. And when they come up like that, you're going to have an elevator right here and the opening for the elevator. And then when you come up on the level, you're going to have a doorway here and a doorway here for each apartment stack. And then obviously you take the elevator to the next level. So that's going to help keeping things, like, instead of, steps going sideways to sideways and this and that, which will be a lot harder to kind of do and build in this amount of space, along with the fact that I built steps before in the desert planet one. And what you guys can see right over there, those steps. And I made them very dynamic. They twisted around. It was very nice, but that is a lot to do for this tighter space. And even though it can be done, where it becomes an issue is going from 1 level is fine. 2 or 3 levels, it kind of gets hard, because now you got to make them zigzag, do all this kind of stuff. It gets a little crazy. So the elevator is what we're going to use here. Now, this is going to be a set of smaller apartments. Also, this whole area is going to be almost like known as the stacks. And I remember hearing that term from, I think it was Ready Player One. It just fit. I like that. Now, the movie. Now, these are going to be some smaller apartments too. Right here, I'm going to have to put these 2 pieces together to make a solid brick, but that's what I have, solid plate, but that's what I have available at this point. This one is going to be 1, 2, 3, 4 tall. So this one's actually going to be taller than that one, but they're smaller apartments, but it's going to be taller. It's going to have, I was going to build a smaller size elevator as well, but then I realized I wanted to build some stores here. These are going to be some small stores, also stacked stores. These right here then are going to be an elevator that will go off to the apartments and to the stores as well. So we're going to have that going on. So it's going to give this feel of just a more dynamic kind of sense of like, okay, all these layers and elevation and, looking off the sides and all this kind of stuff. So it's going to be pretty cool. This is going to probably be a ground level store if I decide. And this right here is also going to be some kind of ground level thing that might have 2 floors on it. Not 100% sure. So these two are kind of a little more up in the air. So they're not solid yet. And the only other possibility, and I got to see how crowded it is I may end up putting something here, maybe even elevate it. But what I'm going to end up doing is taking a couple of these plates to connect some of the rooftops. So we get that sense of connection where people don't have to go all the way down to walk across. So I might end up having from this store here, go across to maybe if there's a central platform or something of that sort. So we're going to see how that's going to go. Even if it's not a big platform, maybe I can have a smaller platform there that it connects with. And then with like a pillar underneath it. And then they're able to fully walk across to where this portion will be. So we're going to see in regards to that, but that is the basic plan of the buildup. So I think this time around, because I did a preview video and I asked if anybody wanted to really see the full buildup, and no one really responded. And so I don't know how much people are into it like that for me to do the full filming. So what I'm going to do is this, when it comes to this process, I'm going to cut it down even further. So I'm still going to build, but instead of showing every build process, I'm just going to build up the buildings, show you what one looks like, then continue to multiply those buildings off screen. And then when I'm done with the full building, I will show you the way it looks. So I'll start one apartment. I'll start maybe the stairs on here with the elevator first. Then after that, show you what that looks like completed. Then start building one apartment, complete it, show you what they all look like completed. Then do the same on this side and do the same on this side, so on and so forth. So there's gonna be a lot shorter of a video, but it still gives at least some aspect of you guys seeing how it was built in case you guys wanna replicate it. All right, you guys stay tuned and we will be back shortly. All right, so what we got started so far is this for the elevator. And I didn't have to make it the height of a full roof height where someone could walk in it, but it's just got to look enough. So I was able to save myself making it empty up there, which kind of works better because 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, the height of an interior has to be at least 5 for regular height for a person to be in it. So this is the height we're going to go with, which is fine. Otherwise, I could have left that empty as well, but it's no point because this allows me to solidify it by doing cross sections here. And this will be the entrance way to the elevator. So I'm just going to build this up really quickly. You guys can see me build this one up, finish up this piece so that way. Like I said, I'm going to continue the rest of the way with all the rest of the elevators and stuff like that. I just want to show this really quick. So what I'm going to do is I got a few of these, which, like I said, I used to kind of clean up some of the gray on the upper part of the capital city area. And so I don't have to use beige for them anymore. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to use what I'm going to do is use a couple of, I'm glad I get to use up some of these 3 ones because I don't really use them for much stuff. So this works out really good. I'm going to put that like this, put one over here, and then put the 2 right there. And then now this is the height of what the building is going to be like right next to it over there. So that's going to work out good. And that's how we're going to kind of just continue the elevator going up. Now these platforms here, being that this is the, like I said, the kind of slums area, the very bottom of the capital city, there's not a lot of, we don't have there's no need for the safety. So I'm not going to put rails on it, at least right now. I don't know if I'm going to change my mind later on. which will then help with, safety, whatever. But I don't really know because, like I said, this definitely is the part of the area where things are definitely a little more, ran down, and they don't really care about safety. And that's the whole idea of the lower part of the capital city is they don't really care. So safety is not a concern. A lot of people down here don't have much, so there's really no worry on little things like that on safety. I mean, certain areas maybe, but not every area, so it's not as much of a big deal. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And so we can cover the top part again like I did with this one here. So what I'll do is I will come across like that, and this just gives us the cross section, give us a little bit more solidifying, because these are being built straight up, as you can see. So you kind of need to have a little bit of cross sections with bricks to kind of give it a little bit more stability. And then once again, we are now going to take this piece here. Now, actually, before I keep doing this, I just realized something. I got to now start reinforcing this. But the problem also is I'm going to have to know where those entranceways are going to be in terms of the apartments. You got a little bit of leeway, but I also want to make sure that the stability is good. Now, I could just make the stability on the far end, and then that works like that. I could do that. I'm just not sure. If I do it like that, it's a little more cleaner. It will definitely be a little more cleaner. So I think I'm going to go that route. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I am going to have to, though, unfortunately, put a plate over there as well. So what I'll do is I will take just your regular 4 by 2 by 4 as the basis for the plate. 3, 4. And the reason why I'm using the grays to come up is because, one, it's a better support because it covers all 4. But also, 2, I found after that initial capital city build, I ran out more of the light grays. I did try to use them more because I thought I was going to run out of the 1x4s. The light grays are obviously 1x2s. And it ended up working out the other way around, and I had less of those. So, but let me build this up to 5. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And this is going to be the pattern that we're going to go up with the all the way through. So now that you see that, I'm just going to stop here. I'm just going to continue all the way up, and then I will show it again when we get started actually on the first apartment build. All right, you guys, so you can see here, sorry about my tablet, I'm just watching some stuff while I build. You can see the elevators here. I think they came out pretty nice. We have the floors here. So this tells you the height of the apartment stacks are going to be the same height here, which is pretty high. So that's a nice look. And like I said, the ones on this side are going to be even higher. But yeah, so now what I'm going to do is just start building up one of the apartments. And what I'll do is take one of my bases, because these right here are going to be the rooftops. But before I even get on that, what I'll do is start with this base. Well, I can start with, I'll move that out the way. One of these rooftops are going to be a little off. That's fine. And now I realize I counted up 2, and what I can do is let me frame it out. So put my dash over there. And I'm glad I have these now because I can smooth out the tops when I need to, like I did on the top elevator. I actually could have closed the elevator, but I'm gonna leave it with that little open top like that. I'm fine with that. Yeah, or will I close it? I might close it. I think I'll do that. I think actually I'll close it. So I sealed that with a 4x4 plate, but then I still put some of these smooth ones just to put around the rim, just to give it a little more smoother look. But it's better like that, because why would the elevator not be closed off of the top? Even though I do like the fact that when you have light go through from the top, it goes all the way down to the bottom. So that's kind of cool. So getting started on this, it's going to be a lot. What I realized is from this angle here with the elevator, I have 5 squares. So I can put this here, and then I'll have 1, 2, 3, 4 for it to be where the elevator is. So essentially, if we look at this the other way here, hold on, let me just bring it closer so you can see, and I'll do it here. So that's where we would have 5 studs, free studs, before the other one on that side, the other stack will be there. So I can build here. So this is what we're looking like. And the reverse side of it will be obviously on the other side of the elevator, but the elevator wall will be right here. So that would be the entrance coming like straight out the elevator. You can go straight in. And from there, it's just really just a long build around. Now, like I said, what I am going to end up doing is I am going to build windows, and that's going to really help a lot. Now, one thing I got to be very cautious about too is having a nice mixture, so that way I do not end up overusing or underusing certain. That should be fine. Should be fine. Now, these plates are gonna probably warp upwards a little bit. That's fine, because once they're really locked down, shouldn't be too much of an issue. Now, one thing that I'm going to have an issue with here is I can still probably get away with it, but that like those studs that come forward are a little bit more tricky now, like on the side of the buildings, because I have actually a few 1x1 studs, and I could utilize them now this time around, but do I want to utilize all of them? I'm going to see, because it's going to end up being a lot, and that's the problem. I have a few of these. I don't have a whole bunch. I don't know how many this is. Maybe like 30. So how many would I need? To be honest with you, I want to say that I'm not really too sure, to be honest. So, and I want to cross build, because I can just build them straight up, but I like to do the cross build so it has that stability. So that's why that's important. And then normally what I would do is go like that, and then it makes it come outwards. But I don't have to do that now with these. So we'll see. But those things can be utilized too. Having those parts stick outwards like that, you can use things like stick on them, like, because what I'm thinking about doing now is adding a couple of like clear translucent color pieces in certain areas to give that sense of like neon lights, glowing things, because, you know, to give some color to the environment, but also too because you want it to have that kind of neon glowing vibe to most cyberpunk type of areas have that vibe. So I want to be able to create that same thing. See, so now here I could either make it, if I would have put a 4-1, it comes off, or I put the 2-1 and then I could put these. So I'm going to open these up. But once again, I'm not really too sure on how comfortable I feel about this. And the only reason why I say that is because I don't want to end up down the line, I start using them and then I run out. So it's looking like for every 2 floors is 2. It's definitely a lot smoother, so that's awesome. But I mean, I don't know what else I'm going to use them for, so I might as well just use them, I guess, you know. I do have curved pieces that are masonry brick style, but I feel like I just want to save those for something else down the line, even though I don't know what. There you go. So with that being said, I'm going to and I hope I don't end up regretting and then later on being like I want to take these back because I got to use them for something else. So it is what it is. But so I'm going to pause now. I'm just going to finish up with the whole building. Since you see how the design is, just rinse and repeat. And I'm going to do a secondary one on the side that is the same design. And that's pretty much going to be it. The only difference that I might do, and I'm not 100% sure, I almost thought about not putting another wall, but now I realize if I don't put another wall on that other side, because I'm going to just let it use this one's wall. But if I don't do that, I'm going to probably end up needing to use more of these 1x1 bricks. So just to avoid that, I use the ones that I have, I guess. I can make it curve slightly inwards on this side, but then that will start kind of looking a little bit funny, but I'll see. All right, guys. So first, I just want to show that for the elevator, I ended up needing to add an extra a 4x4 piece here to elevate it, because I realized when you do the rooftops, before you have a piece going on top, you have to tile it off and do the whole jumper style setup. So that added another layer of a plate high. So I realized that after the fact, so I had to make that correction. So this right here is the ground floor. Let me just push this back a little bit. So this is the ground floor here. And what I realized, I only gave one window on this one, but what I realized is I can put holes. I've ended up putting 2 windows on each other one afterwards, because I realized that I'm gonna probably have to save bricks. So 2 windows per floor ends up giving me a lot of bricks that I end up saving. I save about 6 bricks total in that. It does make it a little bit harder to manage, making it like a little more structurally better, but nonetheless, it works. Now, keep in mind, because I'm not using frames either, window frames. I'm kind of just put a 1x4 over here to kind of keep it together on top, and then I just do the little tiles on the bottom there. So what I realize is this wall is going to be facing the other adjoining wall of the other apartments. So I don't have to worry about the holes here, which is fine. Here too is going to be right where the elevator is, so I don't have to worry about that either. Now on the other side, it's going to be a little different, because that side I will have to kind of play with that, but I will have this one beam here, so I could put holes behind that in where the building is. So I might be able to kind of work with that. Now, this is the second floor. I'm going to place that right on top. I think what I'm going to do, I actually think I'm going to change something up. This piece right here, I'm going to put one of the single bricks there because I have used a couple of single bricks, not a lot. Okay, so what I decided to do was put one of these here. I'm just going to put that here. I don't need too many connecting points, so that's enough. But what I did do for that's the ground floor. This is the second floor. I'm going to put that on top. And it should come off without a problem because I don't have too much in the way of the jumpers. And then even if they get pulled up, they're going to be right in the same space when it comes down, which is fine. Now, I was going to I had these 3 pieces, which I could have used as a roof. But the reason why I didn't want to do that is because by putting them as the ground, it allowed for more stability with the bricks holding it together. So I decided then to take the final panel, which I could have made as the ground, as the roof, because it's a solid panel, and I don't have to worry about it then coming to pieces. I take one piece off and the other piece off. So I thought that worked better. And obviously down in there too, I used 2 panels inside that one as the ground, as the floor, because like I said, the walls hold it together a little better. But by doing that with this one here, what I did was I created now a little terrace. So I took advantage of that to a degree by putting obviously the window in that same space, and people can climb outside of their window. And then I put these instead of just a 1x4 to kind of arch to kind of keep a beam underneath to hold the place of the window, I did a 2x4 so that way it gives a little arch to kind of shield it from like rain if somebody wants to step out or whatever the case is. And then I just did the same over here because it also saves me on the 1x4s because I'm going to need to use more of them for windows down the line as much as I can. That's going to be a big deal. And then I can just plop this on top as the roof, and we are good. We are good now. And let's see. Well, no, we're still not good because I'm trying to get it on. And normally I've never had this kind of problems with this, so kind of throwing me a little off. But I think it's because all these pieces, certain things don't always align the way they should. Not because of the, anything with the quality of the bricks, but you have so many individualized bricks. So anyway, there goes my setup. So what I'm going to do now is bring this over here into frame. Let me just move this up a little bit and come at this angle here so we can see this a little better. And I'm going to drop this in place right here. Our first building structure is built up. Press it down. Spin it around real quick. And that is our first building of the stacks. I think it's all right. It works. It definitely gives you a sense of the presence of these structures and how compressed this is going to be. It's going to be very compressed. It's a little bit of warping going on, but it's fine. So there you go. Let me just raise that up a little bit. And there you go. So there goes your elevator. You can see it aligns with the floors perfectly. And there you go. So you got the ground level down below. You take the elevator to come up. That side is going to have, like I said, the doorway is going to be right there too on that side. So you're going to have the 2 doorways going into the apartments. And obviously I don't have doors. I never put doors on any of my things because these are simple builds. Those are the things you can add extra. So that one's going to get built up the same height. You're going to have these other set over here on this side as well. So yeah. So there we go. The beginning has started. I think it's looking pretty good so far. Like I said, it's going to be very crammed, but that's the point of it. Now, that does take away from the fact that you won't be able to see so much straight on, and that might make me change putting the stores here, or at least making the stores so high. Maybe I won't make them as high, but I gotta see, because I do like the idea of it being very crammed, and that's kind of how things would be. Now, what I could do also to eliminate not being able to see in there that well is I could do this. I could take these, instead of the one store here on the side, I could take these stores, put them over here, or maybe like a little bit of a gap here, and then I could just use some of these. I didn't want to use all of them because I wanted to have places that connect here and there, but use these as the walking paths to the store. That way you got kind of more clear sight that way, clear sight a little bit this way. This is not going to be a tall building here, so even if you look down this way, you'll see this stack of houses, because these apartments are going to be taller than those by one level. So I might go at it with that. So I'm going to see as I come along, as I start building these up, and kind of see how things are looking and take it from there. So we will see. But I'm going to, like I said, leave my layout there so I kind of just know where things are, because I don't want to lose track of that. All right, so we are back, and really quickly, so I built the other floors of the other one. So I did a couple of changes too, and I realized, assessing what my piece count is, my piece count from my box is actually getting really low for the 1x4s. And this is where I'm gonna probably have to start using a lot more of the 1x2s, even though there's not that much more of them either. So this is I knew it was gonna be a very brick intensive build, but these are the builds here that I did for the secondary apartments. Now, like I said, I was able to leave this blank here with these holes in them because this is where the beam is going to be for the steps there. So that's going to be covered. Left this open to save brick space because this is going against the wall of the other apartments. So I just needed to have structure so I could put the roof, but I didn't really need to have a lot. And then I made this to be a 6 stud. I forgot to tile this off right here. This is a 6 stud long window area, which also allows me to save some more bricks. And in the back of the apartment is a 4 stud window right there. So you got the 4 stud, you got the 6 stud here wide to help save. So, and then I did this as a little kind of awning on the window for the top one. So, and then saving these, I used once again, actually, no, this shouldn't even be like this way. I don't want the one on the very ground is going to be one of the other ones. So let me switch this up. Find my separator really quickly. The reason why I messed up on this is the one with the awning should not be the one that's made up of 2 parts. And I'll explain that in 1 second. I'm sorry, the one without the awning shouldn't be the one that has 2 parts on the bottom. So I had 2 of these long ones and then 2 half set ones, or 4 of them. So like this. So these are going to be in the middle because there's not a lot of pressure sticking on the bottom, versus the very base one has to be a solid one, and the roof should be a solid one. That way it's easier to pull off. So we're going to have the complete one is on the bottom. One of the other ones, they're all the same. That was one thing. I just built them all at the same time for the most part, because I knew that it made it easier and faster, because I built them the exact same way. So I didn't have to think about how I was building them. I just looked at the other one and put the bricks in the exact same space, which I didn't do that the first build with the other apartments. And the only problem now is getting this to line up, which I'm having a little bit of trouble, but I think it's because, like I said before, there is a lot of, between maybe a little bit of warping that goes on and a lot of individual bricks on top. Because some people, when they use jumper plates or things like that, they're using ones that are like 4 studs long with maybe 2 studs on them. And this is not that case. And I'm having trouble getting, there we go. So maybe it will kind of, once it kind of fits into place, it will be a lot easier to take that on and off. But for now, this is how it is. We're going to put this top one on, and hopefully that one goes in a lot smoother. And I could see already it's a little out of place. So I might need to put one of those single studs right here. I was trying to conserve if I could, but I think that I don't have that option here because I feel like it's definitely taking away some of that pressure. The stability on the roof part. So I'm just going to add that there. The one stud here. I really didn't want to. I was trying to save some studs if I could. But I guess in this case I can't. Now I got a few. I have actually a good amount of tan one of these. So if I run out, I'll have to revert to the tan ones, which I really obviously don't want to have to do because it'll kind of mess up the look. But if it comes to that, so here, put this last one on here top. There we go. Fits on there a lot easier now that it's already gone in place. So you can see there, that is the apartment. Like I said, it may look a little off with this like here. Oh, that last one, it's gotta be. There we go. And that's kind of why I needed to have those studs here, because this was kind of out of place a little bit because there was no retention in this whole column area. And this is obviously being held from the bottom and the top. So it's a little bit, you know, it's not as strong as I'd like it to be. It's fairly strong, but if I'm going to keep taking it on and off, I got to keep, you know, patching it, like pressing it down, making sure that it's good. And here we go. Just get this last piece on. There we go. And now we're going to slide it into its place. And then for the rest of the night, this is going to be the last thing I do. We're just putting that there. And I hope that it is on there pretty well. Move that out the way, move some of this out the way for a little bit. And you can see that there. So there goes our stacks, our apartments. You take the elevator to get up, and that is it. Let's move some of these off to the side and move this around real quick. So we can see the other side. And these are the apartments. 6 apartments. So I don't think it's bad. These are the stacks. A little bit of warping going on, but it's all right. Now I am definitely getting very short on bricks, but the rest of the building structures are not going to have as many bricks because they're not as big, but I still got to hope that I can kind of pull things off. Yeah. So we are going to see when I come back, we're going to start on this set of apartments over here, which shouldn't be as intense because nowhere near the same footprint and size. And then from there, we're going to see what we're going to do in terms of keeping this empty space in the middle. It definitely is a lot more compressed than what I wanted a little bit because I kind of would have wanted space in between these, but it does help because by them being straight together means that the wall that they share in between is from one's wall and not the other one. So that's good. Access to the roof through the elevator too. So if people want to come onto the roof, they can. And, you know, at some point, I'll probably add some extra stuff over there. But anyway, so that's it for now. And when we come back, we'll start working on the other apartments. All right. So I just want to show real quick. I know this is not the normal angle I've been building at so far, but I'm just kind of relaxed right now. Didn't really have much of the lights on, but I just had to put my lights on just so I could show you guys this, because I'm just going to build multiple of these and I'm not going to show how I build the rest of them. This right here is for the elevator. It's going to be over here. Now, I was going to make it a 4x4 way, but I needed 2 openings on both sides, and it became a little hard to kind of build it up like that. So then by moving it over 1 extra brick, giving it a 4x5, it made it so much easier. So I pretty much built this up 4, built that up 4, and built that up 4. These are going to be the entrance ways that way and this way, because it's going to be a double exit elevator. So it's going to be like that, where these, like I said before, are going to be apartments over here, and then these are going to be the stores over here. It is starting to look a little crowded after I've built the stacks that are a front overhead. Obviously, you guys already seen them, so don't mind that I'm not panning the camera up to see that right now. But I'm going to let it play out and see how it is. I do think once these things get built up over here, those apartments and the stores, I think it is going to make things a little congested. So I might have to leave this area pretty just low, like maybe on one floor high of like a store or something like that, and so that way you can look in this way into this area, because otherwise it's gonna be a little bit crowded. What I also could do, but I'm not really too sure, is I mentioned I might extend this thing out a little bit by maybe adding like a small thin plate, just to kind of make it a little walkway. That way it's got a little bit of, you know, path underneath or whatever the case is, and it feels like, you know, a little alleyway that you could walk through. But anyway, as far as this, the elevator, so I just wanted to show that's how I'm building it there, and then just to solidify it so it all comes together, put that on there, because I always say you got to have your cross section, that way it makes it sturdy. Put this on here, and then here. And then essentially I'm going to rinse and repeat this method right here. And so one thing I do like also is I got a lot of these plates, and I never really had much of a use for them because 3x3 is just kind of an odd number. But what's great is I could use these here. They're not great, but the thing about it is I realize now when you build the elevators, you need at least 1 flat plate height to cap off the top, and then you need the layer that's going to go on top. The reason why is because since this is aligning to a building will have the thin layer of a plate on top of the bricks for my what do you call it again, the jumper plates, the jumper studs that you put on it to hold the roof. So that means you have 2 plates high total. So realizing that when I was building the other elevator, after I built the elevator, I realized it afterwards and I had to integrate them in. This is not going to be fit flush or anything like that. So it's not perfect, but I could do something like that, because keep in mind, this is still going to be covered. So it's not like it's going to be seen. So I get to use a bit of these parts while still, you know, covering it up, and you're not really going to notice, because when this goes on top, let me make sure it's level to where it's supposed to be. It will look something like that, which is like, you know, not perfect, but it's all right. It's not perfect, but it's all right. And then that would be the elevator like that. So that would be like the ground floor one there. And you'll go in it and then obviously ride up. Now, granted, by me doing this, it's not going to be an empty space hole like how the other elevator is across there, but it will at least still be what I need it to be. And this elevator has this kind of multi-sided platform, so that way a person can come out here and just walk over to the storeway, even though you would just take the elevator from there. So it gives you like both ways to come out. When the elevator comes up, you can exit this way or that way. So I think it's kind of neat in that regard. One thing I'm starting to think about now is, should I pull this all the way to the edge? Because I could do that, and that gives me more platform. So I might play around with that, but I just wanted to show this really quick on camera so you know how it's done. So when I do it like 3 more times or 2 more times or whatever the height is, that, you know, you'll, and I think I'm going to, I was going to start it at the ground level without this, but if I don't put a plate on the bottom of this, then that doesn't work. So I think what I'm going to do is put a smaller plate on here. Because actually, when I was thinking about my build, I didn't have the intention of using that because I had 3 of these for the roof for the other level. So I'm going to do that. So anyway, you guys will come back and see how it's done. But nonetheless, I just wanted to give you guys that kind of little play of how it's going to look. So that way, when I start building it and you come back to seeing it built, you saw how it was done. All right, so I'm realizing something, and that is that I might be running into a dilemma right now. So I'm building up the elevator, and it's almost done. But after I put one more platform on top, I'm going to put another one exiting, because similar to this one over here, you got to have an exit point. Not at the highest point. So this one didn't need it at the highest point, but I do want to keep that there going to the roof, because there's so much roof space that, you know, I might do something there. But I like the idea of that. This one doesn't need that. This one just needs one to the highest floor. So you've got the ground floor. So we'll just say 1, 2, 3, and there'll be a 4th one here, 4. This is going to be 4 stacks. This is going to be the tallest location here. Now, here is the issue. And I believe the stores here are going to be 3 high. 1, 2, 3. Yep. And these are going to be 4. So it's going to be the tallest. I'm starting to run out of bricks already. The foreseeable amount of bricks you see here, I don't think it's going to cover that. So I might end up needing to use these bricks. I don't want to end up having to buy more bricks, and I'm close to being halfway done, and the rest of those bricks just aren't going to get me there. And I got a couple more of the gray ones, light gray ones. I could try to use a lot more of those building up the building. There's a bit more of those left. I'll just bring them into frame. There's a bit more of these, but overall between the both of them, it's not a lot. So, what I might end up having to do after the fact, and I might end up having to take this elevator apart. What I'll do is this. If it comes down to this, I'll have to take this elevator apart. I might want to still leave it in this space, but instead of an elevator, I'll just kind of use some, just a couple of bricks to just mount it upward. So I won't need this full dynamic of this. I might just, use like, I got a lot of bricks that are 2 by 2, like these type of bricks and things like that sort, which I really bought those for the purpose of stairs and not using them for. I got a couple of 2 by 1. I can use these as well, but as far as the ones that are doubled up bricks that are 2 studs thick, those can't be used because that's not good for walls. I originally bought those for stairs. So my point that I was gonna get at was that I might end up having to, I could put these things on just stilts of pillars just to have that area occupied as like a walking beam area. Put one in the middle as well, walk like a beam just to kind of mount up something similar to this. Let me move my dash. Put something like that, not an elevator thing, but just what is the word I'm looking for? Some mounts, for lack of a better word, just lifting this up and having these layers here, so it won't be like as many bricks used, and just use it as a platform for these to bridge over to this one, which will also have like an extended walk path. I might have to add an extra piece over here at the tip of this, each floor layer, and then from here you'll be able to walk sideways into this thing. Like I said, it will just be a walking platform, no longer elevator, and you could walk over to there. And in addition, I could probably do platforms, open this up, so instead of it being 4 bricks, I can make it like just the 2 bricks, push it back so you have 2 of these bricks open, if you understand what I'm saying, and then now extend the walk path over the side to come over here. So in that case, you'd only have one way to get up, which is that one elevator, and everything else will then be extended by bridges, which is not that bad. It's kind of cool. It does also emphasize the poverty aspect of the undergrounds, where it's like, well, who cares? You only got one way up. Who cares? Type thing. But I want to avoid that if I can. I don't mind the idea of connecting things, but I really do want to have its own elevator for this side. But I don't know if I'm going to be able to fully get away with that. So I'm going to have to see if the amount of bricks are going to hold up. but I really don't think that they will, to be honest with you, because I would say the equivalent of this and those, though they're not as thick, and I'm going to use windows on them too. I got to use windows on these buildings here. I might have to use 2 windows on these, even though that's a very small apartment size. I still might need 2 windows on these. I'm going to probably need either windows on 3 sides of this and an entrance way in one side. I might have to do that for the stores. So they're going to be very airy, very open, which, you know, sometimes you don't want all stores to be that way, but I might have to. And that will help me save some bricks. I don't even know if I have anything left for these, but I just wanted to kind of give that update status as I finished building this to realize that's where I'm at with this. So I got to see if I'm going to do that. It will take a lot less bricks to just build platforms that are on stilts and have things crossing over with, I got a few, I don't got a lot, but I got a few tiles like this that I could kind of stretch it, and with a couple of I got a couple of 2 by, like, say 2 by 6 plates, which to extend those walkways. So if they only went as far as like this, then it's like I could just extend the tip of it a little bit to reach us here, or whatever the case is. But nonetheless, I am going to try to avoid doing that. So we'll see what we come up with. All right, guys. So we have built up the finished product of the, what do you call this again? The elevator. And this, I didn't place it down because I was going to show you guys, but I just kind of had it up there just to kind of give myself a little idea of how it's going to look. Now, here's one thing. I'm going to take these apart and kind of go over these. One major thing I'm realizing is, like I mentioned before, I am running low on bricks, but I also, when I was doing this, I started realizing something, and that is so let me see here with the different ones we have. Okay, only one of these is a solid base, and then the other one, let me bring this down a little bit. The other one is the other only solid base is on the rooftop here. So this is going to be the uppermost one. And now, a couple of things. Oop, this piece came off one of the roofs. So that was over this one of my jumper studs. Okay, so what I realized as I was putting this together, these are the doorways, the ones facing here. I had to do this kind of setup here because the 6 stud wide, just the way it landed, I couldn't really build it, you know, whatever. So obviously we got to a point now where you really could tell from like the little edged bricks that it just is what it is when I'm working with these type of bricks, to make things the way they are while still being structural, because I like to do the whole cross section. So it is what it is. If they look a little offset, it's fine, because when it's all put together, I like the way it looks. But I started building up the windows, because I need to have 2 windows at least. I started building up the windows actually on the wrong side when I started building it, and I didn't realize that. I just started inserting the windows after I built the whole thing, and I was like, wait a minute, I don't have 2 windows, I have 1 window. And I was like, let me insert a second window. So I started inserting the second windows, not realizing I was putting it on the back side of the building, because they're gonna face this way, where this is the front, that is the back, and this is the, well, this is the front, this is the side where the entrance is, and then the back. So what I realized halfway through the builds, I built 2 of them like that and then 2 of them like this. I'm gonna have to change that, because I'm realizing too, aesthetically, having all the windows face the inner part of the mock is better, because it gives more visual dynamic to look at. And then once I realized that, and obviously, like I said before, I changed, you know, a few of these. So I'm just gonna stack them real quick, just so we could just, in no particular order, I'm just gonna quickly just stack them up. And then you can get an idea that as far as how it looks in its place. And then I'm gonna go over what that made me think of when I realized that. So I'm just gonna put it in its place. I'm not gonna press it down hard, but it's just to get a visual idea of how that's looking right now. Let me bring the camera up a little bit now and come from the angle here so you can kind of see. So it's better to have the windows facing forward. I didn't want to have too many windows because at first I said to myself, well, what kind of apartment has too many windows? You know what I mean? It becomes a little too much. I didn't mind that with the embassy in the previous mock, but that's more of like an office building, a lot of light coming in, you know, huge windows, because those windows are actually taller than the windows I'm doing in the apartment windows. The apartment windows are 3 studs high, bricks high, and then in the embassy was 4 bricks high. So you imagine like this big office kind of vibe. So I first said to myself that, you know, that wouldn't make sense. But the thing about it is this, I'm realizing I might have to throw some logic out the window. I'll tell you why. One, if I have 2 windows on both sides of the apartments, it gives a dynamic of the light coming through, which allows visually for me to kind of see through it better because it's already a cram build. So it enhances it to have light coming from the back through to the front. And that would enhance things. With that thought came the idea that the other apartment stacks, those first ones that I built, are gonna probably need windows. Let me move this out the way so you can see it better. Are gonna probably need windows. I'm banging everything right now. Here and here in the front. And I know that makes it structurally a little thrown off. I end up putting the windows in the back at first, because at first when I was building them up individually without them actually being, you know, stacked on top of each other and in front of the elevators, I said to myself, well, I didn't want to have where, you know, you got the opening of the door. I didn't want to block, like I didn't think I'd be able to fit like opening necessarily in the front because I didn't know how I was going to land with the elevators. What I'm realizing now is, even though this makes these apartments have too many windows, because at that point they'll have 3 windows instead of just 2. And as I had mentioned before, the side windows on this one are 6 studs long, so they're even extra large, and I did that to save in bricks. And I'll turn it around this side so you guys can see the back side as well. Again, what I realized is this: one, I'm gonna have to add a second window on the ground floor because I didn't do that before. I could, or I could pass on it either way, as long as the other one, the majority of them have. What I realized is this: if I build a third window facing the front of the apartments, one, I'm gonna recoup a couple of bricks, which is a positive thing, because like I said, I'm getting low and I need to make these stores. But visually, it will add that dynamic where not only does it give you more to see, even if someone's like maybe in the window and they're looking out, it gives just more dynamic to this gray block that you're looking at, to have the cuts inside for the windows. In addition, the rear windows will allow light, and the side windows will allow light to kind of pass through and come forward. So that way it creates that dynamic of, you know, light passing through. And visually, I don't know how to explain it until it's seen, but visually it's just gonna look so much better having that. The best example I could give is just by putting this here. And I know it's not gonna show the same because I don't have a reverse window coming from the back here on the back side of this, but just the fact that you see the window there, you can see already how it breaks up versus this solid bricks right here versus looking at that. You see the shadow dynamics, you get a sense of, you know, dynamic to the image. And then if there's a window behind it, now you're getting even more dynamic because now you're seeing straight through it to what's behind it. There's a little bit of an example right there when we're looking through the door, when you're seeing that back window. You can see now how that looks. So you can imagine how that scene would look with multiple windows, where it's displaying that kind of like semi-dark, but you know, you can still see through it image, really creating, you know, like making the scene a lot more alive. And this is going to be very important since we're just dealing with just pretty much various gray bricks. You know, I am going to jazz things up later after I finish. And then as I do with the other builds, I throw in some, you know, miscellaneous pieces to add some color and this and that. But nonetheless, I really think that I'm going to have to exit with the idea of the logic of, well, yeah, a person wouldn't want their apartment having so many windows, and just go with the idea that what's going to make it look better for the display scene and whatnot, and just give you that sense of I can kind of see through things. Now this right here, I planned on building this up at least to the height of this one, so you can imagine this being here. Once again, this is why having openness is going to play a big role. And also what I'm going to do on this side when I build these, I'm actually going to build these very similar to the bar back there on my desert planet, where very open, very airy. I didn't originally want necessarily the stores to feel that way, but I'm going to do that for the stores that are up here, because it will allow us to see through it and get a little more visual to here, since it is going to be this high up and taking up a lot of kind of visual space. But then the lower store here, I will make not so much like that, but I looked at some photos of underground Coruscant, and I'm going to try to really build some of these other stores up also to kind of look pretty nice. But another idea I want to do too is the bottom one down here. I seen this image where it had some stores, excuse me, on the underground of Coruscant, where it would have a tall building above it, but then the bottom floor would have like, what's the word I'm looking for? Like arcs, for lack of a better word, in front of the store awning. And it would almost kind of be like those were support beams for the building above it. But as well, it gave this sense of like depth to the store, because it was more of like not a store front, but it looked more like a stand, like like a little kind of food stand or something like that, So I want to do that dynamic here. And then, like I said, the rest of them kind of break it up. So that's where I'm at right now with things. I just wanted to kind of update on that. Like I said, I know I haven't been showing necessarily the process of all the individual building, because these things are just rinse and repeat. They're not that complicated. So if you guys are thinking as far as instructions goes, you get the idea of it, and looking at the previous build, you get the idea. So I'm just trying to fast forward that, but I just wanted to quickly explain, which wasn't quick, explain where my mind's at with this, because I do have to make a lot of changes now. So just a recap. Front windows, I got to make a window on here. Front window on that side. I am going to keep the back windows on these, but I'm also going to make front windows on them. And so these are going to probably have 3 windows as well, giving us that transparency to look through it. Then I'm going to start building up the stores, and they're going to be very airy. Excuse me, very airy and very open. So that way visually we can look through it. But the main visual looking area will be either from this angle, because this is not going to be more than 1 story high, as far as the store being built there. And this one right here is going to be the same. It's not going to be more than 1 story high. And if I'm going to have them there at all, which I think I will. So this angle, like I said, this will be the height of about here. This will be a viewing angle, but mainly also just being able to come straight. These are going to be the viewing angles. So these have to stay low for our viewing angles, while still giving that dynamic that it is crammed, the underground. Because keep in mind, the underground of Coruscant, and this is obviously not Coruscant, but modeled off of it. But the underground of the capital city, we'll say, is supposed to be crammed and crowded, because it is the lower stilts that make up that place over there for the upper capital city, where everything is elevated. That elevation is not just from nowhere. The stilts or support structures that I have on there are supposed to be representation of the top of these, of like these buildings that go thousands of feet high, or structures that go thousands of feet high. Obviously not all of them probably are occupiable space, but at a certain point they create the lower structure that gives rise to the upper part of the capital city from that one over there. So yeah, so it's supposed to give that feel, yet we need to still be able to see in it. Like, so that's what we're going to do here. All right, so I'm going to make those updates and I'll be back. All right, so we are back and I made the changes. So these are the apartment stacks on the left of the elevator, and I added the front windows. Now I didn't add it on this last one. I just didn't feel like doing it in time. If I need the bricks, I'll do it. But also too, because of the width of the elevator, structurally, it just didn't fit for me to build this. They should be aligned here where that line is. I moved them over one, so this part of the window is going to be blocked. So it's not going to be as prominent, but nonetheless, structurally, it fit better because this window over here. So I went with that. So we're just going to stack here. I put the back window on the ones that didn't have a back window, which was just one of them. The ground floor one, this one. And let's make sure this thing aligns up the way it's supposed to, because it's not right now, and I don't know why. And I think the reason why is because sometimes you get a little bit of warping. Not all the time, but sometimes. There we go. And once you kind of have them sitting on top of each other like that, it starts to kind of break the warping. Now, I did this like here too, because this is where the elevator is, so it doesn't have to be too smooth, because the elevator is going to be blocking from here. That brick, like that 4-stud brick, is where the elevator is blocking, where you see those lines. So yeah. And then this one on top here. And there we go. Put the roof on. Like I said, I don't have that there. I may do that later on in time. Really, this one should be the ground level one if I'm gonna do that, but this is the one that also had the little terrace area here. It's not an official terrace area, but it's kind of like how, you know, they just utilize it in that way where they'll climb out from the ledge. There's certain structures that are like that, where people will climb on their fire escape and use it almost like a balcony. So I'm gonna put that one there for now. I'm not gonna lock it in. And now this was the other side ones. You could see here, the front windows here. Now these are not going to be cut off by anything because the pillar is only 1 stud thick. So that pillar side on those side of the steps, I mean, on the side of the elevators and the walkway, if you will, only comes straight down here. So this is gonna be open and visual. So we're gonna just put that one on top. Put the roof on. And there we go. It helps save us some more bricks. And also it allows like a better visual. So I'm gonna put that there. I do gotta build up the other ones to take the windows on the other ones, but for now, you can kind of see this here. Now how it's looking. Now, you know, maybe I will end up doing that later on down the line. I don't have to do it right now, giving it the window. But you see now with those having windows, it's just visually, I think, a little bit more. One, it saves me bricks, but it's also visually a little bit more like, you know, gives more dynamic to these just gray by having this shadow. So I think that looks nice. And like I said, I have to do it to these ones, which have 3 windows. I mean, has 2 windows so far, but I got to give them 3. This one needs the ones facing here, and these ones at the back are going to need these ones facing here. So that way it is a little bit more going on there as well. And those are going to go right here next to this elevator. So we're almost there. It's coming along. Yep. And we'll be back. All right, you guys. So we're back with a little bit of an update here with the build. Now you can see it looks like a lot has changed. I just ended up going on with just building these things up. So I'm just going to take them apart because as you guys know, everything is modular. Not take them to pieces, but just take them off of where they're at. And then you guys will get a better sense. That bridge may not be there permanently, but I wanted to throw it in there just to kind of give that element of what I was looking at. So at least I have an idea of where my mind's at visually. But this also is modular because just like the elevators, I don't like attaching anything to these because I know that, you know, it becomes an issue when it comes to pulling things apart later on. Now, granted, I might change my mind on that because the capital city, the upper part of the capital city was not necessarily modular. You can pull things off, but that whole elevated walkway kind of kept everything connected together, which actually made the entire build a lot more sturdier when I pick it up. So in a way, I might go in that direction with this as well by using these bridges to connect things, but I'm not 100% sure right now. The reason why is because this is not as open of a build as the other one. So being able to move things around is important for the purpose of getting in between and doing some, like just placing figures and whatnot. So you can see here on this side too is the reason why I made these little bridges. The reason why I didn't put this right up above it, right against it, I was going to do that to the elevator. But when I did, the problem was that this part here was so crammed, you couldn't see in between. And then coming here from the front, which I'm going to remove this just for the sake of, us kind of just getting into that space. And I don't know if I'm going to keep it in that design, this little bridge, but I might change it up. It depends. But you could see here that if this was too close, there was no space to walk in between there, where at least now there's a little bit of room that a figure can walk through there. And so it at least gives the visual. Let me just at least get him close there. I don't want to necessarily, he doesn't have to be right walking in, but I want you guys to see. That it looks like he can kind of walk in there to go to the elevator, where before, if that's closed off like that, there's no room for anyone to even walk in between there. And that kind of takes away from what I was going for. Also, too, I had built pillars that came out like this and then kind of came backwards, like imagine like almost like a stair direction. So these things came out even further, and then it's almost like had a kind of diagonal effect through like a staircase type of design to come back down here. The problem is that took up too much visual space over there, because there's a couple of, I looked up photos of the underworld of Coruscant, and they had little structures like that where they'd have these kind of little awning type of things sticking out, protruding, but I couldn't do that over there. So I might do that with a little building that is over here, where I'll have that. But essentially this space here in the middle is going to have to be the visual point in which you can see things, because otherwise we don't have that. So just taking this off the stand real quick, just to give us that kind of visual piece here, you get an idea of how it looks like. Here we get a little bit of that scene of like the ground upwards. So yes, you get that sense of, the scale, especially coming from that point of view, feeling like, like everyth's massive. Like to a minifigure, they're looking up and they're seeing all this, and everything feels so massive. So that's why there's going to be, like I said, the visual point area for it all. So that is something that will, like I said, be kept. That will be kept open. I'm sorry. Sorry, I had a brain fart. That will be kept open. So this right here, I ran out of the gray 4 1x4s here, so I had to end up using the tan ones. It is what it is. I'm going to take this whole thing off right here so we can kind of see what we're looking at. So these are the stores. Now this right here is, one of those kind of counter type stores, like a little front counter area on the bottom. Cause like I said, I was going for that. I seen that in a couple of other, pictures of Lower Coruscant, but sorry about that. Pictures of Lower Coruscant. So I wanted to kind of give that sense. And a lot of times we have this open element here, open front way, where you have like just a counter. You can just assume that the owner just jumps over the counter. You don't necessarily need a side door at this point to be built into it. So even though, maybe I would, just to save some bricks, like I can put it on the side here, whatever the case is, but it doesn't need to be there. But I'll consider that maybe. Then this one right here is another store, just a regular basic store setup, and you got the windows. This one could have been a store, but it also could just be a pass-through. And that's kind of where I was going with the ideas. Now, all these can be removed like all the other ones. You take off the top and that's it. But this is, the idea was possibly just being a pass-through. It could be a store with a pass-through, but it's definitely going to be a pass-through. So at that point, it's a way of, let me just put this back. It's a way of people being able to cross from the stacks over here over to the stores and then over to the other stacks, but giving that sense that you have in a lot of the lower area of Coruscant, we have these kind of connecting pieces. And I would want to kind of do more than that too, as far as the connection, like maybe another piece connecting, but I'm not too sure. So one thing I had thought about, but I don't know if I'm going to do it. And that is coming from this person's window here. But the only reason why I'm not sure about that is because it's kind of invading their apartment. But at the same time too, and if I do that, it has to actually connect. It can't just be, I'm not going to have anything, a structure coming from underneath it, which is fine. But once again, if that's something that I do, I got to just see. Now, I also too could take this piece here. I had to use that to extend it because it wasn't going to be long enough. I could do this without a structure and connect it. And I kind of would want to do that. The only problem is doing that is not necessarily easy. You know what? I'm going to try that. I'm going to go through some of these pieces here. I just need 2 4x2 pieces, and we're just going to kind of see how that looks in doing that. It doesn't look great, perfect, but at the same time, it's fine because this is the lower part of the capital city, so it doesn't have to be, you know, shiny. And we're just going to see if we can just plop that there. And that way, being that it's not sticking in a very like super sturdy way, it allows for us to remove it also pretty easy too. And so that's actually not bad. And I think I might just do that. I definitely think I'm going to go with that now because that looks actually a lot better. And once again, if we're coming from down below, we definitely now have a lot more visual to see things. So that's great. So I'm glad that we're able to play around with that. It's not super sturdy, but then again, it's fine. You know, I'm just putting minifigures on it. I'm not even going to put railings on these things because in the underworld, we're not concerned with those kind of things. You know, we're not concerned about safety on that same level on the underworld. So yes, but I think that looks nice. So, and that actually will allow me to do more connecting points a little easier, I think. So we're going to see. Yeah, because then with that, one thing I could do now, if I want to, now that I've experimented with that, is build a connecting point, maybe going from here to here. That way, if people are going to go on the rooftop here and they just want to come across, it just gives it more that sense of a lot more going on. But it doesn't have to necessarily be that I got a couple of long plates that I haven't used, where in my desert mock of the equivalent tan ones of these, I used a lot of them, but I didn't have to use them in here. So what I might do is just connect a few of these to just make a little bridgeway. It doesn't have to be, let's see how far we have this coming over. That's 3, that's 3. This can go 1 more in. And 1 more in on this side. We could do like that. You know, play around with a few things to see how they look. Not everything has to be a full, thick walkway, but just a little something that's, you know, just there for more like maintenance. You know, if someone just wants to get across, how people run across the rooftops, and then you've got the wires and this and that, like that kind of vibe. So, you know, there's that. Yeah. And, you know, another thing too is what I noticed is, and this is just something else just to play around with too. And that is, I've seen a lot of images that have wires going across. Now I don't have wires, but I could use things like this, where if I had like, say, I don't want to go digging on those now because I kind of put a lot of my stuff away for the moment because I'm gonna pause in a few for the rest of the night. But have some of these things elevated and they're kind of going across from one thing to the next, you know, almost like that kind of vibe. And they're acting like they're wire lines, you know what I mean? Like so it's giving that kind of vibe, like it's like wires. I know I've got, is it in here? Yeah. I got a couple of 1x1s and what I'll do is I'm going to stack them up just for the sake of just demonstrating this real quick. Not trying to go overboard, and not that I would want to waste all my ones, but you'll see where I'm going with this, and it definitely will create an element that looks like it is like wires kind of crossing over from one point to another, and I think that's just really cool. Let's see how this is elevating. I could put it closer to the edge right here. Now I can angle it going this way, and look at that. It creates like it is a wire going across at an angle too. So it's not straight because it's at an angle. I could even angle that even more, and then it gives an even better like sense of just like I said, like almost like wires. Something like that. I could do something to connect it better, but you get what I'm trying to go with that vibe of just like antennas or wires connecting from different places, just to give more of that, visual up in the air like that, where there's just a lot going on. I just think that looks pretty nice. Just to get a lot of chaos going on. That's what we want to have, but also for it to be clear but chaotic. Like, so the same way that I got rid of the pillar underneath that was a great move, and just kind of build up on this. So I'm going to play around with some ideas, but definitely you guys, I like where that's going. We're almost done with the build. We're just going to build like maybe 2 more stores here that are not going to be very tall. Because like I said, this is the visual point. This is like the entrance point of this. So that's going to be that. And just kind of decorate some of these. Sorry, you guys aren't able to see it right here where I'm pointing to. Decorate a little bit just up here with little things, maybe some kind of things that will simulate antennas or whatever the case is. Just kind of look at some more photos of how they do the rooftops, even though the truth is a lot of them don't even have rooftops because they're so high that they go beyond the scope of what you can see. Like these are like thousands of feet high and you never see the top of them except when you're looking at the top of Coruscant. But in this case, we will try to decorate the tops to some degree so you get that almost like cyberpunk feel of like wires and antennas and people just jumping from roof to roof. You know how like the young people would do in like those kind of cyberpunk type movies like Akira and stuff like that, and kind of bring that element to it. So we're gonna see what we could do. I really like that. I'm glad it just did that right on scene. I really like that. I'm definitely keeping that. So we're gonna definitely play around with that right there. Okay, so I'm started building on the shop that's gonna go there. And this is a quick look at it right here. And like I mentioned before, I ran out of the gray 1x4. So now I have to utilize these ones, which I don't mind as much because in the upper part of the capital city, I had these beige ones and I replaced them. I didn't do a video in which I replaced them, but I will kind of show that at a later point in time, just in maybe a comparison video of all the mocks. But I replaced out all the tan ones when I ended up getting the gray ones. But I don't mind on this one because on the lower parts of the capital city, the slums area, or whatever you want to call it, the underworld, it's more likely they would bring in other just parts that other like material that, they're kind of low on. So anyway, I digress. So we've got a little shelf here because this is supposed to be like a storefront. Now, the thing about it is I really wanted this to be, and some point in the video, maybe not specifically here, but some point in the video, I'm going to attach some of the photos of the underground Coruscant that, just some generic photos I had grabbed offline, but that shows some of the things that gives you that look of what I'm talking about for the whole build. But specifically, if you look at one of those photos, I wanted to do, and I mentioned this on this one over here, the structure, where you have like this awning piece, and I'm going to end up doing, I didn't have another one of these, but I only have one of those, and I originally was going to use this for the store, but I was like, let me have a bigger footprint, and then I'll just make the roof in two parts. So I'll probably do it like this, something like that. But the thing about it is I wanted to have these kind of, there was a scene, like I said, and you'll be able to look at one of these photos that I'm going to post somewhere in the video. It might be at the beginning of the video, it might be at the end, it might be somewhere at the video or somewhere in the middle, wherever. Probably do it somewhere in the beginning, where you had a structure kind of like this on the side of it's kind of like a tall building, because everything in this tall, nothing has a rooftop really, because it's all the bottom of the upper part of Coruscant inside those photos. So, but if this is the side profile, let me grab something that I can show like an angle at. It was almost like pillars that came like this. They weren't this wide, they wouldn't be this thick, but they imagine them kind of more like, you know, maybe like structures that are about maybe no longer than a foot wide, which in Lego form, that's like the equivalent of one stud wide, but going like that at that kind of angle like this. And then when they went like that, it would hit like the rooftop like that. And I wish I could create that. And there are certain specific Lego pieces that can do that. There are those kind of ones that slant upwards as they go further up. Unfortunately, I don't have anything like that, nor, like I said, I always want to build this in a more simple type of build. Now, I could build little pillars coming down from here. Let me first just throw up my roof like I was gonna do. And from there, I'm gonna see what I will do with it. Grab a couple of these. Now, I tried that with the other one and I didn't like the way it was coming out, but I integrated them into it anyway. You can see here, these kind of little bracket pieces coming off, and it just, I did longer ones, but the problem is that they got into the way of that path really. And I could kind of do it here, but then now I'm realizing I don't want it to come too far out, because it is also, even though visually it's not going to block things as much, hand space it will. So I'm not going to go too crazy with that, but I will still have this kind of little awning going on if I can. So let's see what I'm able to work with on this. This is going to get connected with just very few studs, and that's probably not even a good idea necessarily. Let me see. I don't have too many single studs anymore to use as jumpers, but I've got a couple of the double ones still left, and so I could utilize those. I got a lot of the 3x1s, but you know, it's just not really a reason to use them as much. I see another 1x stud, so maybe I'll be able to use that. I'm not too sure what I'm gonna decide on that. Let's take this out here. Nothing has to be even or whatever the case is, but what I am big on is just making sure that I connect the points like here where the two pieces are split and form a connection, so that way. But let me see where this is connecting at from here. So this is going to come here, so that part needs to have, we're going to need a little bit of reinforcement going on here, which is also a thing. So what I can do is come here with that, and then I will come with a single stud, which I've got see one of those at the moment. I'll try to grab that. And do I have another one? And I do. One thing when you have a lot of variation in your parts is that you don't end up using all of them, and some of them you use more than others. So here we go here. So I gotta connect this just to give it some stability. So I can, you know what I'll do? I haven't used a lot of these 2x3s. So I'll just use them here. I don't mind because, like I said, I really don't use them. So I'm fine with that. Just to use them up a little bit. And of course, this didn't even. This actually didn't work out the way I wanted it to. I wanted it to be a little bit more solid, and it's feel. So let me take 2 of these flat tiles just to kind of edge it out a little bit more. So now it's a little more put together all around. You know what I can do, and I just realized this now too. This actually works really well. I don't have to attach this extra roof at all. I don't have to give it an attachment point at all, actually. Do I have another 1x2? Don't know if I do. But what I can do here is take a 1x3, which might be a little too much connection point, but I'm fine with that for right now. Put that right there. Put this one right here. What I don't like about that, I want that here just to connect those 2 points. Like I said before, when you got a separation right there, you want that kind of overlap to kind of connect it. But this side, I can put a 3-1. Like that. I'm gonna leave that stud empty, it's not a big deal. And now, this front part of the roof is not even attached to anything, so it should come off quite easy when I lift it up. Because it's now not attached to the base at all, it's just attached to this. So that works out great. Yeah, those pieces sometimes come up, but that's fine. And I'm gonna decorate the inside, all the insides at a later time. When I finish this video, it's just gonna be of putting this whole thing together. Then I will do a separate video, as I always do, of the update of everything fully put together. Yes, you have all these extra pieces coming out, like all the rest of the parts on this build, but obviously you know it's because I'm using simple pieces. And though I have a small pack of 1x1 bricks, I don't want to use all of them. So this is fine for that kind of come up to it. It doesn't have the draping post that I wanted to have come down, but the only way I'd get that too with the separation here, because I don't want it right against it, I want separation, would be using all my 1x1 bricks. I don't want to do that because those are too valuable just to kind of waste like that. I only have a small bit of them. Here's what's left. And I think right now I might end up using these for things like antennas, like which I demonstrated at the top already. So I could take this here. I'm not sure if I'm gonna put it here or a little further to the side. It gives me some room, but the more room I have from it, I get a little alley space over there, but I can put it all the way at the edge. And now that alley has a lot more room. So I'm not sure yet, but for now I'll put it at the edge. And that gives us that little alley. But the problem with me putting it at the edge here, I'll decide, is that I made the doorway to enter right here. So you gotta, I don't wanna use anything outside of the bounds of this for minifigures to walk on. So I can do it like this. I could bring it one over, it's fine, but putting it at the edge, I'll see. But for right now, there we go. So we've got that little storefront there. So between this one, you have this one next to it on the bottom is a storefront. The one, all of these are stores, so that's a storefront too. This right here, like I said, might just end up being a walk path and not actually a store. You know, I could put a store in it, but then it might be more of like a market type of store. We might have a vendor there with a little a chair and like a little desk or a little table stand, and people pass through, and it's just kind of one of those side vendors in the walkway space. But that generally doesn't have a lot of room to be a walk-in store. It's not like a big, when you think of those kind of big market stores that have a pass through, it's not big enough to be that per se. So that's the thing with that. Let's see. Yeah. Just taking a look to see how this thing was structured here. If I could reinforce that better, and I think I can. So I'm gonna do that while I have the time right now. I'm gonna throw another 3x, because I don't use these, the 3x2s. So I might as well, just for the reinforcement. It doesn't get in the way of anything, so that's good. Let's slide this in right there, and you just gotta know to push the edges. You don't push down on any other part except for the edges. And there you go. Now, so the last structure, if I'm not mistaken, I had these at this size to do a little something here. But I think after the fact of seeing that, it might be a little too big, because now it's really taking up the room of that space. So what I thought about was taking something like these, they're very small, and I might make a little kind of thing there with this. So let me kind of brainstorm a little bit, see what I want to do, but I think I'm only going to do that because the footprint then is smaller. If I have a little storefront here, that size footprint is better. So yes, I realized after the fact, building it all up before, earlier in the video, way earlier in the video, I had thought about putting a big structure here, a tower, and connecting things. But after I see how much space that takes up, that is something that I did away with. And once again, even this side, and that's a big important part of when you're doing these kind of builds off the top of your head, you kind of have a loose structure. You don't know how it's going to look once it gets going. So what happens is you get to a point where you make maybe a half of the structure is solid, like that half over there, and then that half over there. This side of the structure, partial, like the stores are like a loose structure in a sense, like I don't know exactly how I'm going to do it, if I'm going to do it this way, that way, but we'll see. And then the this part of the structure and this part of the structure become very loose in a sense, like whatever you had a plan for, you're going to probably have to change that just to keep things, you know, in a way that it makes sense. So what I'm going to also do now too is I just noticed something. I'm going to take another 2x3, and up here, I'm just going to put this up here to go across. Now it's not, let me make sure it's aligning with the other ones, because I want them to all be lined up together. Yep, so it is. So that just little bridge area there, yeah, just to come off there is just for the purpose of that right there. It's just for the purpose of the connecting point. But like I said, the way I did it, it's not physically connecting. And the reason why is because if I want to pick this up, I don't want to attach to the elevator. The same thing with the building structures here. Over there, I don't want them to attach to the elevator as well. Certain parts will attach, like this and that, that's cool, they're easy to take off, but I don't want everything attached, because it is supposed to be modular, not in the sense to rearrange it, but in the sense of when you want to put people in it, you got to pick them up sometime, take the roofs off or whatever the case is, or decorate the interior. So that I want to always be easy. And as this is coming along now, you can see the structure is so massive relative to the other builds. It definitely took a lot more bricks. I didn't run out, which I'm glad I didn't run out. I did have a few bricks, not a lot, from the previous build, but not that much. But yeah, so I'm gonna take a moment, figure out how I'm gonna build this little build, and I'm gonna be right back. All right, so this is what I decided to go with. Very simple. You know, I almost had the idea of making a tower because I had 2 more of these, and then so to stack it where, just so you guys could see it well, let me just adjust the angle, sorry. To stack it where we had 1 more here and 1 more here, which gets some pretty decent height on it. We should be able to get at least the same height as that. But what I realized is that the clearance, not even the clearance, the first thing I thought about was just this. I can make this very open when it's on the ground level, but at the top level, it can't be very open. And I thought about making it like even like a guard tower as it goes higher up, and then I could build steps along the side. Something easy with some quick, easy steps on the side. The problem with that as well is I don't picture there being a guard tower in the underground. Like I don't see it. I don't know that much, but I don't see it. So I don't think, and even if it was, and I can do whatever I want, I don't think I want that into the build. And it does get crammed. So I figured this is just an easy, simple way. This right here could go right here, but for the most part, that is a piece that's made to kind of be moved around, where if I don't want it there at that moment, because I need to have access, I can do that. If I do, then I could just have it there. Now, a couple of things that I may change down the line, but I'm not going to do it right now, but I may end up changing down the line. And that is, I might put something more here, but I like the visual path of being able to turn it this way and look that like there. But I can build this up, maybe 1 additional structure, and it'll be like that high. So that's how much it would cover as far as like visually covering, you know, the site. So it's not too bad, but I don't know. It does give me a bit more, but the only thing about it though is then I would have to come up with a way to get up there, which, like I said, I can actually build steps. I just don't know where I would do it. I could do it on the side here. I would have to move that maybe over 1 stud, because the roof makes it only able to move 1 stud, even though it's a 2-stud alley. But I can move it 1 stud and then put steps going up, and then that way someone could like have 1 stud worth to walk to the entrance here, but it would still be able to come up to the steps. Or if I don't want to do that, you know, like I said, I have to kind of think about it. One thing I want to do actually really quickly is and this might end up just finishing off the build. I'm not really too sure. I kind of want to create a little, I've got a lot of pieces left for this, so I just want to create maybe a spot on top of one of these, on one of these rooftops, of just like a little, like, not like a shelter, just a little kind of like, you know, like almost like a closet space type of thing, you know. I'm going to do a very simple build. I'm not going to make it too over the top. Just take a couple of these pieces, and it doesn't even need to be a full size or height. Like I don't have to make it big enough for a minifigure to necessarily go inside. It could be 3 studs high. It doesn't even need to have easy removal, but just like a storage thing that maybe I can put somewhere on top, you know, maybe over here. And like I said, just for the purpose of, you know, how sometimes on top of some of these structures, you'll have like a spot for like storage or like whatever it is, you know, maybe the maintenance guy stores things up there. It's just a place to go, something to throw something. It just gives some extra visual. I definitely want the rooftop area to be something a little bit more going on. So there's that. There is that. Let me see. Because what I'm thinking about now also is that if I made this a little taller, I can make a connection point here, but I don't know if I even want to do that either. Right now, things seem okay. I do want to, like I said, leave this kind of I do kind of want to leave this pillar thing going on here, not the pillar, but these kind of antenna things going on here for now. It's supposed to kind of represent almost like wires going across. I could try to throw up a little more, and that's something that I definitely want to do, but I may not do that now. I might just end up finishing the build, making this considered the finished build for now, and we see what's up. But yeah, so I think that let's just take a good look at this whole thing. All right, so here we go. I'm just gonna establish this to be the finished build right now, like I always do with the previous mocks. I will then come back and do just a look at the actual, like, this is the build video, and then there'll be a separate video of just like the review of the build. And in that case, any kind of little things I gotta smooth out, I will do so. I'm not really gonna add too much interior when I do that, but I do add a little something in interior when I do that. And then I usually do a third video of like update of when I actually put in my own personal Lego pieces outside of the simple build, because the reason why I label it always simple build is because this is just using simple pieces that anybody can buy for cheap. So, and like I said before in the beginning of the video, and which will be in the later video of it, and every video revolving these things are the pieces for you guys to purchase this, link in the description. So here we go. This is the final build, and it definitely has that cluttered look, that underground look. It is the most massive of the builds that I have done so far in terms of piece count, I would imagine, because the first one I had a lot more left of the tan bricks for the desert one. The upper part of the capital city had a good amount of bricks left, but this one has a lot of bricks left too, actually, but it still has a very congested almost look to it. And so I think a little bit of warping going on. It definitely has a congested look to it, more so. So even though it's probably equal in terms of the amount of brick count maybe as the other one, roughly about, it just has a very congested look. I do like it. What I do plan on doing at some point down the line, when I do maybe do the final, like I said, video of this, so there's usually 3 videos per mock that I'll do. I may try to put like little transparent or translucent color pieces to give it like a little bit of that neon stuff. Maybe put like a little color here, just on these extra pieces that I have hanging loose, and put things to kind of represent almost like how that underground will have that cyberpunk feel with like lights and things like that. But yeah, so there you go. I think it's cool. It's definitely cluttered, so you don't really get that sense of the entirety of it. There definitely is that feel of that. It's hard to kind of obviously get in there with the camera, and this is how you'll be seeing it, unless you're kind of ducking and bobbing and weaving your head. You're seeing it like almost in that same way. Let me try to just come at a lower angle here. Try to spin this around with one hand, but you can kind of see how this looks. So yeah, that is the finished build of this. And once again, we've got that top view a little bit from the apartment. I'm gonna build a few more of these things at some point. I just gotta figure out how I'm gonna lay them around. I don't wanna rush right now just to finish the video. So I will do that at another time, as far as these like little wire posts and whatnot. And I might, add more dimension to them, like antennas, where I'll have like more 1 by whatever plates, not plates, like beams coming outwards, just to kind of form that star-shaped antennas like you would typically have at the top of rooftops to some degree. So I will see in regards to that. I'm glad that I ended up making the windows on like every part. Everyone has like multiple windows, and I'm glad because one, it allows visually to kind of just look through the whole thing a bit more. Now, the one thing I will say with the upper part of the capital city that I really liked was, and that's not the case here, is that I know when I lift this up, structurally, it's gonna be a little bit wobbly. This helps to kind of hold things together a little bit. And I think what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take some of these flat tile pieces, which is what I did before up here, which you saw over here, I did it. I'm gonna use these to kind of lock in this. And it's not to be a lot, but just enough that I could already see that this is not leveled down to where they're locking in place the way they need to. Which I know that this right here, this tower, this building structure should be a lot more flat with these stairs. But the reason why I want to do that is because if I can lock, I don't want a permanent lock. So that's why I'm just using these here so you guys can see what I'm doing. These right here, it's not a permanent lock. That way, if I need to lift it up, I can pretty easy. The reason why I want to do these, but it's not, when you start getting to this level of height on these structures, them being leveled out is not as clear. I know they are the same height though, but it's just, you get a little bit of warping and this and that. The reason why I want to do that is because with the other build, the upper capital city, because of the connecting walkway that circles the entire thing, but that walkway is connected up above, and then they'll have the pillars going down to the base of the base plate. What happens is they form a connection in which when I lift it up, it's very sturdy compared to the desert build and the capital city build, the upper capital city build, it's very sturdy. This so far, I never really tried to lock things down and push them down too hard, but was very wobbly. And some of these things would almost fall. One time, one of these fell when I was lifting it, because I didn't push it all the way down, but I didn't really, I was still in the process of building it. But this will help me when things are kind of connected together. This is going to help. This is going to help. These little things are going to help. So when I lift it, they're kind of holding on to each other, and it forms a complete kind of puzzle. So doing those there. So I recommend if you guys do a build like this, that you guys do that. I hope this time around, being that I did not build it straight through, because like I said, that makes the videos long, even though I'm making it long now by rambling. But I hope that you guys are still able to get enough out of it that you know how to build it from what I showed, gives you ideas and whatnot. I actually also too, on a side note, I did a review of the Lego Daily Bugle, the newer set for 2026, and I had showed how using this same elevator system can be implemented into that. Coincidentally, me building this at the same time I built that, can be implemented into that build if you want to build an elevator. So some of these techniques, my point to that, some of these techniques you can actually use towards some of your other builds in mocks that are outside of the Star Wars themed realm. So anyway, you guys, that's going to be it for this. Stay tuned where I do like my full just review look at this thing, and I'm gonna make some tweaks to it. So just stay tuned for that. And then also too, I will do, like I said, a third video where I add some of my own personal stuff in it that will be, like I said, to jazz it up. The next video of when I just do the overlook on it is for people who don't want to see the full build and have an overlook, but also too, I'm going to add some of the basic pieces that I have here to add some structure, like tables and stuff like that from the basic pieces. The third video then becomes the ones where I add my own personal pieces. And then I'm going to do a video just laying out all of my mocks that I've done so far with this. This probably be the last one for a long time, and just kind of show like just the difference, the dynamics of it, and just kind of just overview of it. So stay tuned, you guys. As always, like, share, comment, subscribe, and I'll catch you guys in the next video.